Hello everyone, my name is Alexander Leonov and this is In the Trend of VM. Today we will look at vulnerabilities that have become trending over the last month and discuss whether a vulnerability management specialist should understand what is happening on the darknet. As usual, let's start with 6 Microsoft vulnerabilities. Remote code execution in Windows Lightweight Directory Access Protocol, OLDAP. The vulnerability is from the December Microsoft Patch Tuesday. 3 weeks later, on January 1st, researchers from SafeBreach released a write-up on this vulnerability, labeled as a DAP nightmare and an exploit POC. The exploit causes a forced reboot of Windows servers. One prerequisite, the victim domain controller's DNS server must have internet connectivity. The vulnerability exploitation is related to DCE-RPC, a technology that allows programmers to develop distributed software as if it were all running on the same computer without the need to worry about networking. The attack flow starts with sending a DCE-RPC request to the victim's server, causing the LSAS to crash and force a reboot when an attacker sends a specially crafted CLDAP referral response packet. But this is all about denial of service. Why RCE? Researchers note that RCE can be achieved by modifying the CLDAP packet. Remote code execution in Microsoft Configuration Manager. This vulnerability is from the October 2024 MSPT. Microsoft Configuration Manager, Config MZR, is used to manage large groups of computers, providing remote control, patch management, software distribution, operating system deployment, and so on. According to Microsoft, the vulnerability allowed an unauthenticated attacker to execute commands at the server or database level by sending specially crafted requests to the management point. Synactive experts revealed the details 100 days after the October MSPT. On January 16th, MP Location Service processed client messages insecurely. This flaw enabled attackers to perform SQL injections and execute arbitrary database queries with the highest privileges, including running commands on the server via XPCMD shell. Public exploits are available on GitHub. There are no reports of exploitation in the wild yet. Remote code execution in Windows OLE. The vulnerability is from the January Microsoft Patch Tuesday. Object linking and embedding is a technology for linking and embedding objects into other documents and objects developed by Microsoft. A common use of this technology is embedding an Excel table in a Word document. What is this vulnerability about? The attacker's code executes when a specially crafted RTF document is opened, or when a malicious email is opened or previewed in Microsoft Outlook. In the second case, no action is required from the victim other than clicking on the message. Microsoft recommends viewing messages in Outlook only in plain text.
Microsoft рекомендует настроить просмотр сообщений в Outlook только в plain text. Для этого нужно в настройках Outlook в разделе Email Security поставить галочку Read all standard mail in plain text.
On January 20, an exploit POC appeared on GitHub that demonstrates memory corruption when opening an RTF document. Now we are waiting for an RCE exploit for Outlook. There have been no reports of attacks yet. Fix this vulnerability as soon as possible. Elevation of privilege in Windows Hyper-V NT kernel integration VSP. These 3 vulnerabilities were disclosed as part of Microsoft's January Patch Tuesday and share the same description. They were found in a component used for communications between the host OS and container-type virtual machines, such as Windows Sandbox and Microsoft Defender Application Guard MDAG. If the vulnerabilities are successfully exploited, an attacker can gain system privileges. Microsoft specifically notes that this is a local privilege escalation on the host system, not any type of guest-to-host escape. These vulnerabilities are being actively exploited in the wild, though no public exploits are currently available. The only difference in the description of the vulnerabilities is that this vulnerability is caused by heap-based buffer overflow, and these are caused by use after free. We're done with Windows. There are still 2 vulnerabilities left in Fortinet products and the 7-zip archiver. Authentication bypass in FortiOS and FortiProxy. A critical flaw allows remote attackers to gain super admin privileges via crafted requests to the Node.js WebSocket module. Affected systems include Fortinet devices running FortiOS. For example, FortiGate Next Generation Firewall and FortiProxy. On January 10th, Arctic Wolf reported attacks on Fortinet devices that began in November 2024. Attackers create accounts with random names, modify device settings, and gain access to internal systems. The vendor advisory was published on January 14th. The vulnerability was added to the CISA-KEV. A public exploit has been available on GitHub since January 21. As of January 26, Shadow Server reports around 45,000 vulnerable devices accessible from the internet.
Shadow сервер фиксирует около 45 тысяч уязвимых устройств, доступных из интернета.
The vendor recommends updating FortiOS and FortiProxy to secure versions and restricting or disabling administrative HTTP/HTTPS interfaces. Remote code execution in 7-zip. 7-zip is a popular free open-source archiver widely used by organizations as a standard tool for managing archives. The vulnerability is a bypass of the mark of the web mechanism. If you download and run a suspicious executable file on Windows, Microsoft Defender Smart Screen will block it from executing because it comes from an untrusted source. However, if you download a 7z archive containing another 7z archive with malware, you can execute the file with just 3 double clicks, and Smart Screen won't trigger. This happens because 7-zip versions prior to 24.09, released on November 30, 2024, failed to properly apply the mark of the web label to extracted files. An exploit example is available on GitHub. No signs of exploitation in the wild yet, but they are likely to emerge, as this is an easy way to increase the success rate of phishing attacks. Update 7-zip. Should a VM specialist be aware of what is happening in the darknet? Of course, at least roughly. Otherwise, he himself may start to believe in the classic "no one is interested in attacking us." The reality is that everyone is under attack all the time. It's like commercial phishing with trawlers. Anything that gets caught in the nets will be classified, priced, and put up for sale. In today's world of cybercrime, access to an organization's infrastructure is a commodity. The same is true for vulnerabilities, exploits, and ready-made malware. Attacker groups have specialized. Some research vulnerabilities and write exploits. Others embed them in malware. Still others implement bypass of the information security system. The fourth get primary access. Fifth, people monetize this access. Sixth, support the operation of trading platforms. And whether these guys can break your organization depends on you, VM specialist. On January 21st, a large study on this topic and a webinar with an available recording were published on the Positive Technologies website. That's all for now. For more details on these vulnerabilities, read our February digest of trending vulnerabilities and the post on Haber. Links via QR code and in the description. This was Alexander Leonov. Write your impressions of the episode in the comments. We are also waiting for your questions on the topic of vulnerability management. See you in a month. Bye, everyone.
До встречи через месяц. Всем пока.
Vulnerabilities keeping you up at night. Need a helping hand to set things right. Scan this QR code, it's quick and easy. See, join the AVE on your content like Grand Channel family.